Good morning, everyone. Let's get after it. Today we're looking at the DraftKings market movers on Drafting Out Loud, trying to see what's going on this Monday morning. As always, we're going to start with the platform values on DraftKings. And a lot of these players have not changed a whole lot. Uh, Brees Hall, I think, is even more of a value on DraftKings than he was before. We have a lot of running backs and a lot of wide receivers, and nothing else at this point in time. On DraftKings, I think the QBs and the tight ends are kind of getting pulled up. We've noticed that before by having a lot of QBs on the values for underdog. And then also, I think we've had some tight ends as values on underdog too, both early round and late round. And so now it's just a bunch of running backs and wide receivers that are values on DraftKings. Let's look at the running backs first. We got, again, Brees Hall, Ashton Genty, Jonathan Taylor, Jonah Coleman, Sean Tucker, Trevion Henderson, and Derrick Henry. Of these, we got a bunch that are in the very early rounds. We have Ashton Genty, Jonathan Taylor are the two earliest right there. You can get them based on draft slot, but you can't really target those ones. But then we have this middle round of running backs in Brees Hall and Derrick Henry, and then even Trevion Henderson, who are more kind of in the middle rounds or early middle rounds. And you can target those players if you want to. Now, I think it makes sense for Brees Hall to drop into the fourth round. Middle of the third, it's not bad. I just wouldn't want to take him too much. Once you get him in the fourth round on DraftKings, I think it is better value. He's a pass catching running back who should outperform his value on DraftKings relative to underdog. The New York Jets aren't a great offense, so they're not expected to be a great offense. And so he's not going to be getting, 1,000 touchdowns, which means he's going to get more of his value from yards and probably from catches. So he makes sense on DraftKings here. I think he's similar to Trevion Henderson, who is going later also on DraftKings, even though he's a pass catcher. So these two here, Brees Hall and Trevion Henderson, I think are great ones if you get them later. It would be awesome if you can pass Brees Hall in the third and get him somewhere in the middle to back half of the fourth. And then Trevion Henderson comes around the next round and you end up with him back half of the fifth round or something like that. And they're like, thank you very much. I got two running backs that are pass catchers that could potentially, outperform their ADP relatively easily if their offenses do a little bit more, or if Trevion Henderson gets a little bit more work compared to last year, type of thing. So that's an exciting build, if you ask me. And they're in the same division, which means that you have that potential bring back correlation for week 17. And again, two pass catching running backs. Thank you very much. Derrick Henry is a better value on DraftKings as well, which is surprising, just because he's always been overvalued on DraftKings relative to underdog. That being said, this does make sense why he is a better value on underdog or a better value on DraftKings and not as good a value on underdog. He's not catching many passes and he's getting most of his points from touchdowns and yards, and therefore you'd expect him to be a little bit higher on underdog. I wouldn't be targeting Derrick Henry, just age and such. That being said, as we learned last year, building out a very strategic Derrick Henry team makes a lot of sense. So do something that the other Derrick Henry owners probably are not doing. What is your traditional Derrick Henry owner doing? He's loading up on tons of running backs early and then sacrificing, of course, the other positions to do so. So when you draft Derrick Henry, you don't want to load up on too many running backs early. Maybe if you start off like running back, wide receiver, running back, then you want to kind of cool it on running back unless you can get some extreme value with the next ones. So I think there is value in getting him. I wouldn't be trying to overvalue him, like get over the 8%. And I also would be trying to be smart with how I'm building out that player. We got Jonah Coleman here, and Sean Tucker as the last two running backs. And I mean, they're fine picks. They're okay picks. Sean Tucker's not as exciting anymore because we know he's now in Tampa Bay and they have a three-headed monster there. Um, but around this time, I guess he's okay. But I would probably just keep on letting him fall. I think he's falling right now. Jonah Coleman, rookie. Some people like him, some people don't. So if you're going to draft him as late as you can overall or the right type of builds. So this would make sense, right? Like you take Derrick Henry, you take another running back, and then you get a falling Jonah Coleman or a value Jonah Coleman or something like that. That makes sense because the person that's getting Derrick Henry doesn't want the mystery box of Jonah Coleman. They typically want the guaranteed value of the first couple rounds type of thing. They're going to take the Ramondre Stevenson instead of the Trevion Henderson because they know that Ramondre Stevenson did it last year. They didn't see Trevion Henderson do it for the entire season. So there you go. Those are the values. When you're attacking something like this, realize that you're going to have to pay up for your quarterbacks and probably your tight ends as well. So don't be afraid to do so that you don't just ruin your team without any quarterbacks or tight ends. Okay, ADP risers. And we have this sorted, we sorted this off of like an average of these because the risers, I think free agency is starting to take its effect, and looking at it by just the day didn't really kind of give good results. I thought this gave good results on what's going on with the risers right now. Kenneth Walker still rising almost into the first round at this point in time, like we were saying. So if he makes it past this ADP into 16, 17 or so, or maybe even just at 15, feel free to take him if you want to play the ADP game, but he still is rising. And I expect him to get to that probably 14 or to 15.1 as opposed to 15. So there's maybe still a little bit of juice there if you're playing the ADP game. And he could get into the 12, 13 if the steam keeps on going on. Momentum is a big thing here. And I see Kenneth Walker go in the first round, like in the middle of the first round a couple times as well. Romeo Doubs, he's well, this one's kind of surprising. He's under pick 100 now. And I think now there's probably more risk in this profile than reward, in that New England is still linked to grabbing another wide receiver. And if they did grab another wide receiver, you got to think that really puts a damper on people's expectations for Romeo Doubs. I guess get him for New England stacks because you're drafting Drake May relatively high. But at this 97 price point, I don't know how I feel about it. Same thing with Byshell Tootin, actually. Now he's at 54. That's in the middle of the fifth round. Is that before or after Trevion Henderson? No. Okay, so he's right after Trevion Henderson. So he's been rising up the boards. And now he's trying to get more in line with Underdog, if I'm not mistaken, because on Underdog, Byshell Tootin goes before. No, sorry. Byshell Tootin goes before Trevion Henderson. Is that right? I'm trying to think which way they go. No. We'll have to go look and see on that one. I'm having a hard time thinking it all the way through here on which one goes first. I want to say Trevion Henderson goes much earlier, is what it is really on Underdog. But now they're kind of in the same spot. Pick your poison, which one you want. They both got risk. Trevion Henderson has the better draft capital last year and the better just overall profile. Byshell Tootin has the right now, guaranteed number one running back on the team. He's also has a freak athletic profile. Also, just didn't do as much compared to Henderson. So pick your poison, which one you want. I think it probably comes down to what your team looks like a little bit and which one's given to you on the board type of thing. I do think it makes sense to maybe just try to push running back around. We were talking about this in one of the prior videos. Push running back around and see if one of them come back to you in the fifth. That's kind of the way I'd run it. Chris Rodriguez getting pushed up the board. Still some value there as the backup for Jacksonville. But Jacksonville could sign a running back that makes Tootin and Rodriguez less exciting, or they might just stand pat. So a lot of risk. I don't know how much more reward there is in either of them. Some people think Chris Rodriguez could be almost like the starter because of how reliable he was for getting 4 yards a carry type of thing and his experience with the head coach for Jacksonville. And so I think out of these two, Chris Rodriguez maybe is the better pick in some ways at ADP, uh, assuming the head coach trusts him and gives him a lot of run for where he's going. J.K. Dobbins at 114, I still like that pick right there. He's still rising up the boards a little bit. But if he comes back this year and kind of continues what he was doing in Denver, then he's going to pay off 114 all day long. Isaiah Pacheco, 175, is still rising up the boards a little bit, 21% over the last week. I'd be taking him on the right build, but overall, I think there's a lot of there's risk and reward in this one. I think most of the risk is twofold. One, Pacheco didn't really do much last year, and two, are they going to treat him like David Montgomery, or is it really just going to be the Gibbs show? The reward would be Pacheco proves that the reason he didn't have much juice over the last year, 2 years, is the injuries, and he's coming back healthy now after more than a year off the leg injury. I think it was a broken leg, and he shows that explosiveness. I tend to think that you don't want to overdraft Isaiah Pacheco because he was a 7th-round pick also. Mike Evans, as we were saying, was going to get into that 3rd round, and he is almost there. And DJ Moore even going ahead of him. I wouldn't be targeting them anymore, but I think they're still good draft picks. I just wouldn't be targeting them at these prices anymore, unfortunately. Which is maybe a good thing also, because then we can target your Byshell Tootin and your Trevion Henderson at that point in time if you want to. Chig at 180, I think, is a really good target there. You could even take him earlier than that. I think this is the right time to try to grab your Jaden Daniels if you can, and then try to stack him with a White and a Chig type of thing. Travis Achan, I think is what he goes by now, is now at pick 29. That's kind of crazy. He is still moving up. He was at like 30, 31 before. Now he's at 29. Mix him in. I'm not excited at that price. I don't know what he's done to make that price make sense. Alvin Kamara is still on the team. He's gotten a lot of bad talk, but he was the pass catcher. And assuming he's on the team and playing, you'd think he still is the pass catcher. And so if Travis Etienne doesn't have the pass catching role, does he pay off pick 29? Gino all the way up to 180 now on risers. Like I said, the QBs are not really values on DraftKings. Geno Smith at 180. I think Geno Smith could be an exciting pick. I know a lot of people are down on him, but if you have Jets on your team, I think it makes sense. Also, if you can get some sort of back stack around there as an emergency thing, I think it makes sense as well. So I like Geno Smith if you got to take him. Emmanuel Wilson at 187, I think, is an interesting pick. Seattle could do a lot of things which would make Emmanuel Wilson not worth anything. And even if they don't do anything, Zach Charbonnet is expected to take that starting role. So he might be a good beginning of the season type of player, which if you're doing some sort of zero RB build, it would make sense maybe to draft Emmanuel Wilson late as one of those RBs to hope that Emmanuel Wilson gets the front-loaded volume, and then later on, someone else picks up the pace, and you don't need Emmanuel Wilson later on. So I think Emmanuel Wilson here makes sense, especially in certain types of builds. Justin Jefferson is now solidly in the 1st round. Makes sense. That being said, I don't know if I'm excited about him as much as other people are. Just with Kyler Murray, who knows? Ibuka is now almost into the 3rd round. Kind of crazy, but there he is. And Alec Pierce rising. I don't understand the Alex Pierce rise. Like, was Indianapolis the best place for him? He did some stuff last year, but was he? But what if he would have went to one of the other exciting places and they signed him? They're kind of saying, okay, we think you're our number 1. I don't know if Indianapolis is going to treat him as a number one and give him a full array of targets, or will he just get similar targets to last year, which was good when he was getting drafted at the end of the draft, but now this early, not really a fan. I think I got him on one team when there was just no one else available type of thing for what I needed for my build. But overall, I don't know how much Alex Pierce I'm going to be taking at this pick. Here are our fallers, and I apologize for the color change, but hopefully you can kind of see what's going on here. The fallers are a lot of players that have been impacted due to free agency. We have Trey Benson. I'd let him continue to fall. Some people think he might be done with football. Bucky Irving has fallen out of the third round, and I think he makes sense on your I think there's a good player. Let him pass through the third, and then take him in the fourth round, either because you need a running back or maybe it's a unique build. You don't have a Bucky Irving build there yet. But I'd still maybe not mix him in too much. He might fall into the middle of the fourth round. Momentum is a thing in these drafts, and once people start passing on him, he starts getting passed on more and more. The fall is usually slower also. So be patient, but mix him in probably. Theo Johnson, I'd kind of pass on him until like the last round type of thing. I think there's still some value with him, but I wouldn't be taking him. I wouldn't be targeting him. Alvin Kamara, we don't know what's going on with him. He might not play next year even. But if he does play, 175 is probably value for what his role would be. So at some point in time, maybe he's a value. I think we need to wait for more news. I'm not drafting Alvin Kamara at this point in time. Jeremiah Love, he's just fallen because Kenneth Walker's rising. Watch some of his highlights. They're pretty exciting. I'm still in on it. Michael Penix, the questioning of who's the QB there. So it makes sense why he's falling. Tyreek Hill falling just because he is injured and doesn't have a team. Sean Tucker falling because, and I'd let Tyreek Hill fall even more. This is still a bad value relative to underdog. Sean Tucker falling, I'd let that one continue to fall. He's one of three running backs on Tampa Bay. And so Bucky's falling and Sean Tucker's falling. I'm not really excited for Bucky, Tucker, or Gainwell at this point in time. I think, draft him if you get good value on him, right? It's a best ball and you have a portfolio, but I wouldn't be trying to get well overweight on those players, I don't think. Stephon Diggs falling. I think we've just learned that when a player doesn't have a team like Stephon Diggs and Deebo Samuel and Juwan Jennings here, that these are players that you probably want to target right now. No one's excited about them. You can get further falls on here. So you might be able to get Diggs in the 140s, maybe even the 150s, I guess, if he's already here at 138. Deebo Samuel, you can get probably like the 160s, maybe even the 170s. And Juwan Jennings, you can probably get in the 130s, 140s. So up to like a 12 pick fall or something like that, or more sometimes with these players. So I would be probably still not, I probably wouldn't be drafting them earlier, but once they sign, I think they're probably all going to go up. And it's just what happens. And we're even seeing that with like Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney's getting drafted earlier now just because he signed with the Giants. We knew he was going to sign somewhere. So why weren't we drafting him earlier? I was drafting him, but whatever. I'll brag about that one. I shouldn't be, and I'm not. But I think we've learned, or we're trying to learn, that these players will rise once they sign. And if Darnell Mooney's rising when he signs, why won't Diggs, Samuel, or Jennings rise when they sign? So I'm taking all three of these players, especially if they fall past ADP, because they still are falling and they haven't signed yet. So if you can get them at a better value than these, you're golden, I think. Warren falling, I think you got to let him continue to fall with him and Rico in the same backfield. I don't know which one's the better pick personally. I think some people are in on Warren, some people are in on Dowdle. I think you probably want to see them both fall to think about it. Wasn't not Najee and Jalen Warren pick 100 each the 1 year? So why are we taking Warren this early? I don't know why, as I'm talking about it. So I'm even more out on this at 83, I think, than I was just a moment ago. RJ Harvey falling still just a little bit over time because of the J.K. Dobbins thing. And um, I'm not really touching RJ Harvey unless you get a major fall on him right now. And I am still attacking J.K. Dobbins, I think, until he gets, around that pick 100 or something like that. Devin Neal falling just like Alvin Kamara because they're the other New Orleans backs. I thought Devin Neal was exciting, not exciting, but like a potentially interesting pick until they did sign Trevian, not Trevian, Trevor Etienne, however you want to pronounce it. Now New Orleans has Alvin Kamara, Devin Neal, Trevor Etienne, and they still have the other guy as well that tore his ACL, but was like an exciting, pick also. They got a lot going on in New Orleans at running back. I think it makes it hard to draft any of them, especially past like earlier than their ADP. And I think it makes it hard to be overweight them with confidence. So what should we be thinking based on this when we're drafting on DraftKings? I think maybe trying to push running back makes a little bit of sense if you want to get unique and different than most of the field, which is really trying to pull up the running backs. I think it makes sense on DraftKings to see if you can get a fall on your Breece Hall. I like that idea. Like, can you get a fall on Breece Hall and a fall on Trevion Henderson and end up with a unique DraftKings specific type of running back build? And I think to do that, you got to be a little gutsy and avoid your running backs, like too many running backs in rounds 1, 2, and 3 to take advantage of like forcing the fall potentially, as well as benefiting from that fall also. Realize there are a bunch of wide receivers that are values here on DraftKings in the middle rounds, which means that maybe pulling up tight ends, quarterbacks, and just a mixture of wide receivers early maybe makes sense as well. So don't just go like, oh, I'm not going to grab all running backs, let me grab all wide receivers. I do think grabbing a QB potentially or a tight end, it doesn't be the first 3 rounds, but somewhere around there makes sense too. And then letting a lot of these players, I think we've established that a lot of these players, let them continue to fall. Some of them we're letting them fall and just probably not touching them. Others we're letting them fall, hoping that we can kind of catch it even further down the board. Catch Bucky a little further down the board and mix him in right now. Love is fine there. And then catch a falling Diggs, Samuel, Jennings where you can. If you got him around pick 100, I'd take him as well. If you got Harvey a little further down the board, in the 70s, 70 or something like that. Or if you're a team where you need him at 66, I think it's fine also. But yeah, I like the idea of the Breece Hall, Trevion Henderson build. Looking at this. Let me know what you think, and we'll try to get a draft. See ya. Peace.